Fantastic. It's good to have you here. You are the Senior Venture Associate at Plug and Play. What does that mean?
That means that I deal with a lot of startups every day. I scout startups and keep my finger on the pulse on everything that has to do with mobility, sustainability, and production innovation.
And you've got 3 people joining you right now.
That's right.
Excellent. So I'm going to leave the stage to you. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. So for the next session, the green tech opportunity in hydrogen, I would like to invite on stage Ronald Grasman at Hyundai, Dr. Thomas Douglas at BP, Dr. Simon Schäfer at Linde. Thank you so much. So even though hydrogen has been initially proposed as a clean energy source decades ago, today it really holds the promise of helping us fight against climate change and global warming and helping us reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So I would like to invite you all to join the conversation with Ronald Grasman, who is Vice President of Global Fuel Cell Business Development at Hyundai. Ronald cooperates with international organizations that share the same vision of the hydrogen society, and he helps create new markets for the Hyundai 2 fuel cell system, both in the automotive and non-automotive domain. Thank you so much for joining us. Then we have Dr. Thomas Douglas, Low Carbon and Future Fuels Manager at BP. Thomas works in the Innovation and Engineering Technical Organization within BP, and he leads the technical team that is focused on the use of hydrogen in mobility. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have Dr. Simon Schäfer, R&D Engineer, Hydrogen Fueling Technologies at Linde. He has been focusing for the past 10 years on the development of new hydrogen fueling technologies. His special focus is on hydrogen systems which use cryogenic liquid hydrogen. I would like to start our conversation with a first question. What would be the use cases of hydrogen that are most strategic, most competitive, most efficient for us and for companies like Hyundai, BP, and Linde to follow in the next few years? Where does hydrogen hold this competitive edge? What kind of applications should we all focus on in the next few years?
Okay, so I'm happy to start. So I think for us, clearly, the use of hydrogen should be in hard-to-abate sectors. So these are sectors that are inherently difficult to electrify. So from an industrial perspective, that's things like ammonia production, use of hydrogen in refining, but also other high-temperature industrial processes. But from a BP perspective, we also see real opportunity in transport, which is obviously highly relevant to this conference. And that's right across the sector, so from aviation in terms of the production of aviation fuels, so sustainable aviation fuels. In marine, it could be used as a fuel directly or as ammonia on board ships. But also in the heavy-duty on-road sector, as BP, we see real opportunity for hydrogen in that sector. So some of our internal planning suggests it could be up to 50% by 2050 in the UK used as hydrogen, and those are the trucks that are traveling the furthest, carrying the heaviest payloads, and therefore using quite a lot of energy.
Well, I'm coming from the mobility side, so I think honestly, of course, there's many applications outside of mobility. I'm not the expert on those, but looking at mobility, everywhere where you need green power, hydrogen and fuel cells can play a major role. And if you look at our future energy system and how times are shifting and how we are going towards an all-renewable world, where we will need to store plenty of renewable energy, it's obvious that that will be based on hydrogen at one point. So I think we cannot really say there's one specific use case that's more suitable or more competitive. It's basically everywhere where green power is needed.
Yeah, and as said, hydrogen can be used in many applications, but we focus today on hydrogen as a fuel. And so here I really see mainly the long-haul distribution and long-haul transport where we can support with hydrogen, and especially also in liquid form.
Absolutely. And when thinking about mobility, of course, fuel cells are extremely important, and the efficiency of fuel cells is extremely important. So, looking at you, Ronald, how much progress have we made lately when it comes to improving this energy efficiency of fuel cells? Of course, we're scaling renewables, we're thinking about other materials other than platinum, for instance, that we could use to manufacture them. But where are we now? What's the latest on fuel cells in terms of what Hyundai is thinking about and what you have developed already?
So if we look at the fuel cell system as the central component of a fuel cell vehicle, drivetrain, or a stationary application, the efficiency is between 60 and 65%. So this is compared to directly using electricity and storing them in batteries and then putting them in an electric motor, still low. But we don't always have that comfort that we have the possibility to store large amounts of energy in batteries. So therefore, we are on a very high efficiency rate compared to internal combustion engines. So it definitely makes sense to utilize that expensively gained green hydrogen not in a combustion engine, but in a fuel cell. So the main challenges don't lie so much in the technology side, but it's more in the production technology. So if you look at fuel cells, we are mass producing fuel cell systems, but this is compared to internal combustion engines, still on a very low range. So when we scale up this production, there's standard automotive technologies. We're talking about control units, wiring harnesses, hoses, pumps. So this is standard automotive technology, but we just need to make the switch to real large-scale production.
So green hydrogen is extremely important. So the production of hydrogen is something that we still need to work on in the next few years in order also to make mobility applications more viable and more widely spread.
So we are a user of the hydrogen, but you're totally right. The fuel cell is one part of the equation, but I think producing green hydrogen, that's probably where my two colleagues can give more details. This is the key factor.
Yeah, happy to build on that. So production of green hydrogen is absolutely essential, and BP has announced major projects globally in that space now, so both in Europe, but also further afield. So if you look at Australia, we recently announced a 26 gigawatt project, which is from 26 gigawatt renewable power, and that's going to be about 16 gigawatts of green hydrogen electrolysis. So huge projects, but that's what the world's really going to need to produce enough hydrogen to start having a material impact on decarbonization.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the user experience, to the heavy-duty truck drivers, what do you think is most important for them when it comes to refueling with hydrogen? What are they looking for? What's something that's on their mind?
So from a BP perspective, we see the future is going to be a mixture of both BEV and hydrogen trucks, heavy-duty trucks in the market. But as I said, it's the hydrogen trucks that are going to be more suited to the longer routes and heavier payloads. And high utilization, that's where they're favored. But to really unlock those benefits from a refueling perspective, we need to be able to refuel those vehicles quickly, and those vehicles then need to have that high range. So people are quite used today to using diesel, which inherently has fantastic properties when it comes to refueling vehicles. You can add about 500 kilometers of range to a truck in a minute with a diesel nozzle. So it's a huge amount of energy you can transfer. Whereas hydrogen, you really have to push that to these high emerging standards. So we can then, if we could get to 10 kilos of hydrogen per minute going onto vehicles, then that would allow you to then have 100 kilometers of range added per minute, which still gives you a lot of benefit over battery electric vehicles, where even megawatt charging, you're looking at more like 15 kilometers per minute of range added to vehicles. So, we see that fast refueling experience is going to be critical to our customers to really help unlock the benefits of hydrogen.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Linde Hydrogen Fuel Tech is trying to offer and trying to achieve, that we have fueling stations for hydrogen, which offers a really good and speedy fueling experience for heavy-duty customers. And yeah, that's one of our products we are offering.
Absolutely, and the infrastructure is very important and something that we've been looking at for a few years already. It's the chicken and egg problem. The reason why we don't have enough hydrogen-powered heavy-duty trucks on the road is because there's a lack in a dedicated infrastructure. So Linde has been working on this, and you've been working on these kind of technologies. What do you think is most important when it comes to transporting hydrogen in liquid form? We've seen also a few startups emerging in the space with new types of technologies. Have you cooperated with any startups, or are you building in-house this kind of new liquid form transportation means for hydrogen?
Yeah, so that's there's many topics to that. So we have achieved a lot over the years. So Linde has built more than 200 fueling stations worldwide. But if you compare it to the number of fueling stations around there, it's by far not enough. So also other companies are building fueling stations. So it's a good beginning, and the technology readiness level is quite high. What is missing is now that we have on the customer side and on the landscape enough opportunities to build hydrogen fueling stations and also to have more vehicles on the ground, passenger vehicles, but also long-haul vehicles. And that's what is missing. And when it comes to cooperation, there are a lot of cooperations with large companies, also with political players. And of course, on the plant side, we are relying on sub-suppliers, and therefore we need collaboration. And I think that's true also for my speakers here.
And I believe Hyundai is also working actively on establishing the infrastructure. I know you're working with a startup, Hydrogenius, LOHC Technologies. They're based in Germany, and you're working on kind of building this not only in Europe, in Germany, but I think mostly in Korea.
Yeah, you're right. So we have actively invested in Hydrogenius, and unfortunately, I think we were supposed to have a speaker today, but he's not here at the moment. But nevertheless, I think it's very important to keep the options open. You know, there's at the moment we know that hydrogen is offering a better energy density if you put it into a tank than if you utilize a battery, but it's still a lot less than if you have energy in a liquid form, like in a gasoline or diesel. So therefore, we need to get better technologies. Now, LOHC is one example how you can store hydrogen in an organic carrier liquid, which is which does not have any negative or hazardous properties. However, this is not the only technology. Liquid storage is very important for the heavy-duty trucking world. I believe the gaseous refueling that we're seeing at the moment for hydrogen vehicles, that will stay around many, many years because it's very good for smaller vehicles and passenger cars. So I think the main topic, and this leads back to the topic of cooperation, is to remain open, not to easily fall in that pitfall to say, this is the technology, now we're developing this technology and that's it. I think that would be very bad. And this is where these startups, innovative startups, can have a very good impact.
Absolutely. And in the hydrogen space, I think last year alone, startups raised a lot of money. I think around 500 million in funding, which is like a 6 times increase compared to last year. So they're gaining momentum. So technologies for fuel cells, technologies for storing hydrogen, for transporting hydrogen, they're becoming more and more real. And we see a lot of innovation coming out there from external young tech companies. So I know Hyundai is working and investing and having partnerships with quite a few startups in Europe. BP, I suppose, is also open to collaborating with startups. And how do you maybe integrate all these external innovations within your own internal R&D departments and the work that you do?
Yeah, so we absolutely see innovation is going to be critical, particularly in the hydrogen space. So if you look at hydrogen, there's still a lot of problems to be solved right across the value chain, from production, distribution, the retail sites and vehicle technology. And I think a really vibrant community of startup companies has potential to really help move that forward at pace, and absolutely BP's interested in directly engaging with that. So we do that through our technology organization. So in my role, we engage with technical companies and have look for opportunities to collaborate. But we also have our ventures organization, which directly invests in a whole range of companies right across spaces directly related to BP and also adjacent to that. So yeah, lots of interest in that area.
And what about when it comes to Linde? How open are you to collaborating, to talking to startups? Is that something that is part of your culture internally, or?
Yeah, for sure, we are very open, and we have done in the past a lot of times, and we integrate always interesting companies, either by buying things from them or by really investing in them. So actually, I'm not alone here today. So IT scouting colleagues of myself are today also here to meet up with people. And yeah, so I think if you want to be successful, you also need fresh partners, and that's what we do. Yeah.
And then moving on from startups to bigger companies or to established players, to governments even, what do you think is most important for Hyundai, for BP, for Linde to do next in order to encourage even more this vision for a hydrogen society? Potentially you already have established collaborations with many players out there, with governments, but what is missing? So what would you like to see more of in the future?
I think all in all, managing the transition to net zero means that you have to cooperate on all levels, basically, from smallest companies all the way up to governments. And I think we're progressing in that field quite well. So there is the International Hydrogen Council. And in the Hydrogen Council, most of the players are organized from industry and government. And there's a common consensus that hydrogen will be the backbone of our energy system. So if you look at the companies represented there, it's like the who is who of the international companies. And it's not localized countries only, it's around the globe. So I think that part is quite well taken care of. I think the one topic that needs tremendous improvement is the standardization, the regulation, creating an environment makes it easy for companies to invest into hydrogen and hydrogen technologies around the globe. So this is a big topic.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think standardization, regulation are key gaps. You look in the hydrogen space today, there's still a lot of different competing technologies, and some of the technologies we need, particularly in the truck space, haven't yet been fully standardized, and there's that really would provide opportunities to allow the market to scale. But having said that, I think strategic partnerships more broadly, I think provide fantastic opportunities for companies like BP to accelerate what we're doing. When we announced recently an MOU with Daimler in the UK, where we're trying to have 25 sites by 2030, and working closely with them to try and accelerate the delivery of that. But I think, the standardization, safety, and then working with other major partners to drive the right regulatory environment are key factors.
Yeah, same on the Linde side. So standardization is key, I guess. If you wait too long with standardization, companies go in different directions with their development. That's sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But at a certain stage, you have to agree at certain interfaces how they look like. But on the same hand, same side, you have to be careful not to fall into a pitfall to say too early, this is the technology, and that's it. So it's a fine line, but we need standardization and an agreement not only in Europe, but also on the worldwide scale.
If I may add one thing, so apart from the organizational level and government level, I think we all need to get better on the element of communication. Yeah. So for most people, hydrogen is something quite metaphysical. Yeah, it's like a vision that never becomes real. But the fact is, the hydrogen revolution is happening right now. And most people, if you ask around, they only know tiny little bits of information about it. And there's a lot of fear about hydrogen. But it's a fuel that can be perfectly safely handled, actually a lot safer than probably what we have today. But we're lacking, or we have been lacking on the ability to communicate to the broader public.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to hydrogen, there's a specific set of experts that do know each other and they talk about it and they understand perfectly. But when it comes to educating maybe the others or to helping them understand the benefits of hydrogen, there's still much that we can do over there. Maybe one final question, looking at the time. We are facing today several geopolitical crises with the war in Ukraine and Russia. How has this event affected people's perception of hydrogen or people's openness to look at hydrogen more closely? Have you seen anything changing in the past few months? Have you seen more interest allocated to this source of energy?
So yeah, I think it made up the mind of many people that they have to look for other sources of renewable fuels, and that we don't have so much time left as we probably might have thought. So we have to get quicker. And from my personal perception, I really see that the movement has accelerated into the direction of hydrogen.
Yes, so however horrible these events are, it is accelerating this necessary transition tremendously. So I think it's really, in a way, in this sector, it has the one benefit in this that we are realizing that we have to get independent from such energies that's coming from countries that are truly not basically living up to our understanding of human society.
Yeah, from the BP side, we're fully committed to our transition from an international oil company to an integrated energy company with a big portfolio of renewable power. And I think volatility in the market shows that this is the right path.
Absolutely. Now, thank you very much for joining me on the panel today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to approach Ronald, Thomas, or Simon later on if you have more questions about how together we could work to enable hydrogen to become a real source of energy for us and a real commercial source for us in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.